If you're starting off your 2025 slower than you'd hoped, you are not alone. Despite our most ambitious intentions, sometimes it takes a while to pull ourselves out of burnout or a loss of momentum. This podcast, in fact, is the perfect example to kick off today's topic and the first episode in season 4. Welcome back. I am Sue, host of the Swears and Does Hair podcast, which has been off the air for about a year now. I think it was March of 2024 was the last time I released a new episode. And I haven't been in front of this camera in about a year now. I think January of 2024 was the last time I sat down to record anything in order to produce it and get it out there on the podcast players for you. So, welcome back to you and both to me because today's episode has taken me I don't know, about 4 or 5 different attempts. So it's really kind of like the universe is just taking everything that I wanted to talk about in today's episode and really just testing my patience today when it comes to even getting things recorded. First of all, I had plans on getting all of these things recorded during the month of December so that the first week of January I could kick things off. I was gonna be switching things up and instead of doing 4 episodes per month, 1 every week, I was just going to take it easy and get back into the swing of things by doing an episode every other Monday. Well, unfortunately, December ended up being a really rough month for me, just mental health wise, and the end of the year. A lot of burnout kind of came through my hair and makeup business. November was super, super busy for me. September and October, again, I overloaded myself with a lot of travel. Over the summer, I traveled out of the country. And again, it took me a while to kind of get back into things. So by the end of the year, when December rolled around, basically, I was done. I was really done with so many different areas of my life and just how things were kind of going. And I was lacking any kind of motivation to get out there and to do things. And I brought up every single excuse really that I could think of for why I couldn't get back in front of this camera. First of all, it was December and everybody was booked. So nobody could get me in to get my hair cut. And I needed like 6 inches off. The last time I got in my haircut was in January of 2024, which kind of just became like the whole story of my year. Nothing kind of really went the way I expected or the way that it planned. And I needed a haircut. I needed my roots dyed, which I still haven't even done. I was suffering from a lot of acne randomly and really bad dry skin because of the winter weather. So it was just like kind of one thing after another. My kids were home, extended Christmas break, just one thing literally after another. We had family that came in the early part of January who came and stayed with us for a week. My kids were snowed in out of school for an extra week. So every time I turned around and I was like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start recording. I'm going to put some new episodes out there. There's so many things that I want to talk about and that I want to share. And 2024 was just this weird year for me where I wasn't creating, I wasn't sharing the way that I had been in years past. I had kind of hit this point of a roadblock. I knew I wanted to change things in my business, but I wasn't really quite sure where to go with things. So I took a big, huge step back, and it has been a mountain for me to climb to get back here. So today's topic is really about when things like this happen in your business, what do you do? How do you get back on the horse? How do you overcome these things that are holding you back? How do you shift and change your mindset so that, you're not worrying about the little things that really kind of only you care about? Most of the people who listen to this podcast listen to me through Apple Podcasts or through Spotify. And guess what? They don't know what I look like when I'm doing it. So why was I caring so much about whether or not my hair was cut or my roots were done or whether I had a big breakout that day? But In 2023, I had shifted a lot of how I produced this podcast into a visual format. I started taking clips and putting those in reels to promote new episodes. I started producing them as full length video episodes on a YouTube channel. And so I got really in my head about how I looked all the time. After turning 40, things are just not quite going the same for me anymore physically. I'm getting way more grays than I ever have before. And you'd think after 20 years of dealing with that, because I started going gray at like 22, 23, I'd be over it. No, no, I'm not. They say when you hit your 40s, you have less fucks to give. But when you put yourself out there on the internet, and there are some really mean people there, you find out you actually have a few more fucks than you thought you did. So, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening and supporting me. Weirdly enough, even though I didn't put out really any new episodes in 2024, I think maybe I had 3 or 4 episodes. The podcast actually really grew a lot. I was checking my numbers and I had so many downloads throughout the year. I guess with almost 90 episodes, when people found me, they had a lot to binge, so I got some huge download numbers, and there were still people who listed me, in the Spotify Wrapped, and I was their number 1 podcaster. I was one of their top 5 podcasts. So, thank you for joining me throughout the years and listening to me and binging me. And if today is your first episode and you are listening in, I swear it gets better. Like I said, it's been a year since I have sat down to record anything. But instead of going on and on about me and how my year has kind of not quite been what I had originally hoped for myself, let's talk about you. I created my coaching business as a way of sharing what my experiences are with being a business owner with other people to help them avoid those mistakes, or if they've reached that point where they're at the same stage where I was at, how to get over it. So instead of just going on and on about me, what can we grab from this experience? What can I share with you about how to navigate and overcome periods of, burnout and a loss of momentum in your business? It's not uncommon for people to take breaks from Instagram and from social media in general. It's actually a good thing, I think. It is very helpful to your mental health, and it can be really hard to kind of get back into things if you were posting super consistently or using the app super consistently, all those kinds of things. It could be hard if you are going through a slow season. How do you get back into the swing of things? I know for myself, the winters have always been super slow for me. And then taking some time off, picking up my makeup brushes and or my hair kit or whatever, and getting started on clients again. Sometimes that first day, that first client, I feel like I'm fumbling around a little bit, and it's like, do I know what I'm doing anymore? And I know that that was a really common experience for me and for a lot of other people that I've talked to, just getting back into busy season again. So it doesn't necessarily have to be some huge thing that has kind of happened or a massive sense of burnout. So there are still lessons to learn, even if you aren't like, oh, I'm not burnt out. I'm like, I'm doing really good and whatever. But if you are somebody who, like me, has hit a point where it was just you didn't know how to get going again, or like I said at the beginning, if your 2025 just kind of isn't starting off the way that you expected and the way that you thought, here are some strategies that you can kind of put into place in order to get going again. Quick little thing about what kind of led to this point. I had hired a podcast producer at the end of 2022, heading into 2023. And if you're watching on the YouTube or if you're listening and feels a little bit different, looks a little different, sounds a little bit different than the beginning of last season. That's why I'm no longer using that person, not because he wasn't amazing, because trust me, it was so nice having somebody else take that huge piece of the puzzle off my plate and just like tackling all of that. What happened though was I was trying to keep up with a new episode every single week. I would sit down, I would record, and I would send him all of the recordings. And what would happen is even when I sat down and I was like, I'm going to map out all of my episodes and I'm going to create a plan and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to batch record and I could send him 3 episodes. He wasn't working on those 3 episodes at the same time. He was working on 1 episode a week. And that would be the next episode that would get released. And instead of being able to slowly work during the week and do it on my own schedule, I was having to cram everything in over the weekend, which just became super, super overwhelming. And I think is what really ended up leading to the burnout because it felt like no matter how much I was working ahead, I still only got the final product back like 48 hours before the episode was supposed to be released. So this season, I am going back to my roots. I am editing everything myself again. And I have decided that I'm not even going to try and go for every single week. I'm cutting back to try and do every other week. But if you follow me on YouTube, you're not only going to be able to watch the podcast episodes, but I'm leaning a little bit more into YouTube in general and doing some more educational content on there. Originally, when I started the YouTube channel, I was like, no, I'm just going to keep it for the podcast, but YouTube's going to get a little bit of a rebranding. So if you are somebody who hasn't been following me over on the YouTube channel, go to the description box and go give me a follow or subscribe or whatever the correct term for it is. Because there's going to be some really cool stuff coming out there. I'm going to be hiring some models to come in. I am going to be doing some makeup education. I'm going to be doing some hair education. I'm going to be doing some kit walkthroughs. If you are somebody who uses HoneyBook or is considering using HoneyBook, I am redoing my HoneyBook Masters, which was a mini course that I offered the ins and outs, everything, all the tech side, how to use HoneyBook as a bridal hairstylist and bridal makeup artist because a lot of the tutorials and a lot of the pros and stuff out there focus on photographers, venues, other types of people in the wedding industry, and they've branched out to non-bridal pros. So I wanted to create something to help hair and makeup artists utilize the platform a little bit better. So I used to have it a few years ago. It was a paid product. I discontinued it when they started the Smart Files, and I've been meaning to re-record and do it and update things, how to use different templates, how to set the workflows, all that good stuff. And I've decided that I'm going to be putting content like that over onto the YouTube channel. So it is something that you're going to be able to access completely free. Also, on my Instagram, you will be able to subscribe to my subscription channel. And on there, again, I'm going to be going more in depth in hair and makeup tutorials. So that's an additional way that you're going to be able to learn from me this year, in addition to the podcast, because it looks like the universe is really just kind of working for me right now. I've been able to finally get this episode rolling and going through. So, okay, now that I've kind of got that housekeeping out of the way, let's get to the juicy stuff. When you are in a similar situation, what advice do I have for you? The very first piece of advice that I want to give you when it comes to getting back on the horse, whether that is coming back from burnout, a loss of momentum in your business, things are just kind of going slow for you, or you've just taken a really big break. Maybe you've stepped away from maternity leave, whatever it is. Okay, just start. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you ask anybody who's been in business for a while, just start is usually kind of one of the things where they're like, yeah, it's hard to get over the mental hurdle of like, but what if it's not good? What if it's not perfect? But it really doesn't matter. Like I said earlier, so many of you, you're never even going to see what I look like when I sit down because you're just listening to me. And if I continued to let how I looked on camera hold me back, I would never just sit down and get started. I also really struggled with, like, getting everything set back up. How did I have my lights before? Some of my lights in the background aren't even working right now. Camera issues. My computer was overheating, so many times trying to do this episode. I had, problems with the recording system getting started. I had problems with my microphone. Um, but I sat down and I started and I tried. And it's taken me like 5 attempts at this recording, and I feel like, okay, that's it. I'm kind of back into the swing of things. But if I sat down and I tried and I ran into all of these issues this morning and I said, fuck it, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to keep going. I'm not going to keep trying. It would be another 6 weeks from when I said, "Hey, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna start doing the podcast again." Time would just keep going by. So the more that you wait for things to be the right time, the things to line up, for things to be perfect, for you to be able to afford XYZ or whatever it is that you're telling yourself you need before you can start that thing that you want, whether it's starting a new project or getting back into your business. You don't really need what you think you need. Okay. Especially if it's getting back into things. I kept trying to tell myself, well, maybe I need a new camera, or maybe I need a new this, maybe I need a new program. And I didn't because I had 80 something episodes that I'd already recorded with what I had. So, again, you don't need really what you think you do. Just get started, start messy, you don't know what you need until you start trying. Okay. You can watch all the videos that you want, you can take all of the classes that you think you need. But until you start doing the thing, you're not going to know what you really need. So, like, an example is I could go and I could sit down for a hair class and I could watch that hairstylist use particular tools or particular products in the hair. And I could be like, okay, well, I can't do that style or I can't do that whatever until I have those tools or I have those products. And then I come home and then I practice, and the tools and the products aren't gonna change until I get started and I actually physically do the thing. I'm gonna fuck it up a few times, and then I'm gonna develop the muscle memory, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get better. So, all things in your business and really all things in your life, just start. Get started. You can't get better if you never start. Okay, the next piece of advice that I have for you when you are trying to regain momentum in your business and get back into the swing of things is have a system. First, you have to get started so you can figure out, all right, where do I need to practice? Where do I need to change? You got to make the mistakes before you figure out how to fix those mistakes. And then once you do, create a system from it. Create some kind of workflow that makes things easier for you. I think where I really failed with hiring a podcast manager or a podcast editor was that I didn't really have a system in place. I thought I did. I thought by just batch creating and, filming all of these episodes back to back and just shipping it off to them that I'd be set. But in reality, what happened was I was still having to do a lot of the back end stuff and figuring out how that schedule fit into my life. I didn't have a system in place for myself. I just kind of had this little like random checklist of, okay, each episode, these are the things that I need to do. And I didn't have a workflow or a system in place for me to accomplish those things. And now, having been able to take this big step back and reevaluate my process and my system, I no longer just have a checklist. I actually have a workflow that I've put in place. So, how can you take this and apply it to your business? Well, creating workflows allows you to move throughout the process of booking brides so much easier. And we all might think, oh, well, I have a workflow. The inquiry comes in, I send them my initial inquiry response and my price list. We go from there. When they sign the contract, then it moves on to the next thing. But sometimes it's not as efficient or as effective as what you think it is, and you don't realize that you're creating unintentional little roadblocks. And when you have all these roadblocks, they really kind of start to build up, and that's when you start to hit burnout because you're overwhelmed. Your system for what you're doing is no longer handling what's going on in your business. So, whether that means that you are suddenly getting a lot more inquiries than you were before, and your first part of your workflow is no longer serving you, you're spending way too much time responding to all these initial inquiries and getting ghosted. That's going to lead to a sense of burnout. And then you're going to take a step back, probably in your marketing, because you're going to be like, well, what is the point? I am getting overwhelmed with the volume of inquiries that I have. I need to decrease that in order to get a hold of things. That's not necessarily your problem. Your problem is how you're handling things at the beginning. So, it really comes down to evaluating your process. And if you're getting ready to go back into a heavy booking season, because right now we're in January, it's engagement season. We're kind of at the tail end of it. We have Valentine's Day coming up in about 3 weeks, and we'll get a little initial, bump around that time, but then it's really going to start to taper back off again. Usually, March or so is when a lot of people's businesses start getting busy again. Weddings pick back up. So you're going to shift from the inquiry stage and all of these new leads from engagement season into working with people. So while you're maybe in that slower time and you're not spending as much of your energy working with people in person and you're focusing more on just your admin piece, take a look at your workflows. Take a look at how you flow through everything from the first inquiry to follow up afterwards. Where are the pieces in your system where you're meeting resistance? Look back over 2024. What kind of went wrong? What didn't happen at the speed with which you would like? What did not happen consistently? Those are kind of areas that are usually the first place I recommend people focus on. Or it might be that you are in a sense of burnout because you grew really rapidly in 2024. That's an amazing thing. But usually we hit a period of burnout right before we're getting ready to evolve into that next level of business for ourselves. For myself, I had a team and I grew it really quickly. I had like 7 artists who were working for me, a business partner. We covered like multiple states, all of that kind of stuff. And the year before I hit burnout, we were just doing too much. We were doing too much. I couldn't handle that. I didn't have the right system in place to manage all of those weddings. So many weddings for so many people, trials, styled shoots. We would do like 5 or 6 bridal shows every single year. Like it just became too much and I hit this period of burnout. And what I could have done is evaluate the system and maybe delegate a little bit more, pull back in certain areas, prioritize. I could have created a better system to handle that volume without burning out again and evolve my business past that. But instead, I let the burnout consume me. And I kind of just said, fuck it. And I gave everything over to my business partner and I took a huge step back and I took a year off. And then I was able to reinvent and re-evolve myself into the hair and makeup business that I am today. because I took that year off and looked back and was like, if I could go back in time and if I could do things differently, what would I do? Let me build a whole new business for myself from the ground up, from scratch, knowing what I know now. And that's what I did for myself. So if you're in burnout, you don't have to burn it down. You can just kind of be like, what's not working? Let's create a system to manage that a little bit better. All right. And the last tip that I have is really, it kind of goes back to the first one with start messy, is release the perfectionism. It's never going to be perfect. I know as beauty professionals, everything is very heavily focused on, the physical, the aesthetics, and perfectionism naturally kind of comes with that. As women, we have a tendency to be more perfectionists. We are the nurturers, we are the providers, we are the emotional stability for a lot of people. We've been raised and trained to believe that we need to pay attention and monitor the emotions of the people around us at all times. I'm a bit of a feminist, so forgive me here if you're not really in that mindset. But I think as women, one of the reasons why this is so crucial to our emotional intelligence as we age is for our safety, is because we are monitoring the emotions of the people who are surrounding us in order to protect ourselves, whether emotionally or physically from people who may be upset with us. And so, what we do as business owners is we take that perfectionism and we try and apply it to everything behind the scenes as well. And I can tell you, after 18 years, shit is never going to be perfect. Again, this episode right here is the perfect example of things aren't going to go perfect. I spent an entire year taking off and evaluating and getting my mindset right. And, I did go out and finally get a haircut so I felt comfortable going on camera and my skin's looking good. And I did my hair and my makeup and whatever. And I got ready. And you know what? The universe still said no. It was a lot of notes to get to this point in today's episode of this recording, of just everything kind of failing. And if I let that hold me back, it would be one more excuse of why it's not perfect. The episode never would have been recorded. I had to record 3, 4 shitty episodes with bad audio recording and really kind of go through the process of what do I want to say, figuring all these things out, talking it out, editing things down, whatever, and just sit in front of the camera and kind of word vomit a little bit. Not that I'm not word vomiting right now, anyways, but you know what? I'm releasing the perfectionism. This is my first episode back after a year. It's not going to be perfect. And I can't let that hold me back anymore. I can't be scared of what other people are going to think. And I want you to take that mindset and apply it to yourself and to your own business, whether it is something at home or whether it is something with your clients, with work, whatever. It's never going to be perfect. We can't hold ourselves to that level all the time. It's never gonna happen. All we're going to do is find ways that we weren't good enough, and it's gonna build up in the back of our minds. It's going to, create this story of why we're not good enough because of XYZ things that went wrong, things that weren't perfect, and it's gonna build up. And that's how imposter syndrome gets started. So release the perfectionism, just get started. Once you're going a little bit, figure out where you're making the mistakes and learn from it. Build your system, build your workflow wherever you're finding those little roadblocks, those bottlenecks. What could you do better next time? Adjust. Business is not, I have a plan, I do XYZ, I go through the process, and then everything is perfect and everything goes according to plan. It never works that way, guys. It doesn't. You can have that plan, but you're going to go through things and you're going to be like, well, that didn't quite go how I wanted it to. that didn't end up the way that I expected. And you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to reevaluate. Just like your contract, it is a living document. It is consistently evolving because you're going to meet new people who are going to create new challenges in your business. And you're going to go, well, fuck, that sucked. How do I prevent that next time? And now you have a new clause that you've added to your contract, or you've evaluated your workflow and your process and you're like, I kept running into this problem, or I ran into this one problem this one time and it was big enough to cause me to shift how I do things. That is how businesses evolve. That is how businesses survive the long haul. I've been doing this 18 years. If I let my perfectionism win, I wouldn't still be here. I would have never evolved my business to the point where I'm so fucking proud of what I've done and who I've become, imperfections and all. I can still sit here in front of you today, and tell you I'm really fucking proud of myself because I didn't let that imposter syndrome win. I let it kinda take over at times, but I was able to push it away and say, "You know what? No. The mistake that I made is just an opportunity. It's just an opportunity for me to grow and to do better." Every client that I had that didn't book me after a trial was an opportunity for me to evaluate and go, where do I need to perfect something in my process? Is it my technical skills? Is it my communication? Did I have a good enough consultation with them prior to, or do I need to work on that? Every person who said, no, you're too expensive, wasn't really about the price. It was a learning opportunity for me to say, how am I communicating my value? Who is my target market? Who am I trying to reach? Am I reaching the right people anymore? Every time my business has evolved and gone through a new phase of itself, as I've reached the next level within my own business, I've had to shift who I'm speaking to. When I first started my coaching business, I was a brand new coach. I knew a lot about business and about marketing to brides, not so much about marketing to other hairstylists and makeup artists. And, the people that I spoke with and spoke to and helped at the beginning of my journey are not the same people that I'm speaking to and helping at this current point in my journey. I've had to evolve my messaging and how I approach who I speak with. It's not just anybody who does hair and makeup. It's really people who are at the beginning of their journey, people who really need these types of workflows and systems to help them maintain, a level of consistency and excellence in their client experience, helping people discover, no, who am I really trying to reach? And, building that. So, somebody who's been doing this for 10 years, yeah, I can work on a one-on-one coaching call with them and I love working with those type of clients, but that's not who my courses help. My courses help people who have been doing this for like 3 to 5 years. They kinda know what they're doing. They have enough under their belt to be like, "Yeah, I've been doing this for a while." Their skills are, really good, but they have holes. They have holes in their business and their process, and they're really just focusing on the wrong things. They're spinning their wheels trying to focus on creating more reels or, flooding their inbox with hundreds of inquiries a month when they don't have the right systems in place to manage that. So, who I'm trying to speak to now is not who I used to speak to, and when you're at that place in your business as well, if you're trying to raise your rates for 2025, or maybe you've opened your books for booking for 2026 and it comes at a higher price point. Who you're working with today may not be the people that you are booking and working with for 2026. So you have to kind of like reevaluate things consistently as your business grows, as your business evolves, as you evolve as a business owner, as you maybe go out and get married or buy your first home. And that comes with some unexpected challenges as a homeowner for many, many years, I'll warn you. Um, or maybe you're starting your family, you're expanding your family, or your children are no longer little. Maybe now they're in school and you have to learn how to evolve your business to support your life. Because your life should not be shifting to continue to support your business with how you've always been doing things. Your business is there to support your life, and you should be shifting your business instead and navigating those things. Your family and your home life, your friends, your relationships should always come first. And if your business is no longer in the place where it's supporting that, that's what's going to lead to burnout. You're trying to do things the same way you've always done, but your life is not the same life it's always been. So, how do you take that and how do you shift that? Start messy, make a bunch of mistakes, figure out where your bottlenecks are and how you can create a new system to support it, and then just release the perfectionism. Let it go, let it flow, let it evolve. You've got this. And maybe if you don't quite got this, I've got you. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Like I said, every other week, we're going to get back into releasing new episodes where I'm going to help to support you in your growth and your journey. Make sure that you are following me on Instagram. Go to the show notes to follow me on YouTube for all of that additional fun education that's coming there. And if you're interested in either any of my courses, because maybe you're in that first 3 to 5 years of your business, or if you want to do some one on one coaching, I've shifted how I'm doing one on one coaching this year. I really want to focus a lot more on helping people kind of in those later stages pinpoint, all right, where do I have those bottlenecks? That's really something that I thrive in and that I love. And a way that I can be there to support you is help you kind of manage that. Figure out, all right, what can I help spot in your business that you can't? So, those are all the different ways that we can work together this year to continue to grow your business, help you book more brides, help you make more money, and help you build a business that does support your life wherever it is in 2025, if it's not where you were in 2024. So, again, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, and I will see you back next time.